Well, good afternoon, everyone. Alberta has fought hard to win the constitutional right to manage our natural resources. That's why immediately after being sworn in 2 years ago, we proclaimed the Preserving Canada's Economic Prosperity Act. This legislation provided the Minister of Energy, if necessary, with the authority to restrict the export of crude oil, natural gas, and refined fuels from the province. This afternoon, on behalf of the Minister of Energy, Sonia Savage, I will be tabling Bill 72, a renewed piece of legislation with the same name, that demonstrates our unwavering commitment to protecting the values of our resources and will ensure that we have every option available to us to defend Alberta, to defend our economy, to defend our resources, and most importantly, to defend Albertans. Should any other jurisdiction attempt to unconstitutionally block Alberta's energy resources, this legislation will give Alberta's democratically elected government the ability to fight back by restricting their oil and gas shipments. For Confederation to benefit all Canadians, it has to be an economic union that allows exports to happen without obstruction. The revised Act has been further strengthened from the previous version to provide greater legal protection against court challenges. Using this legislation will continue to be the final and not the first step in protecting Alberta's interests, like a fire extinguisher, which you only use in case of an emergency. This is simply a matter of ensuring we have every option available to us to defend our province's natural resources and our oil and gas industry. We will continue to seek the path of diplomacy with any and all jurisdictions. We will continue to assertively defend our economic interests and our province's energy sector. With that, I'm happy to take some questions.
Operator, can you put through the first caller, please?
Janet French, CBC.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. I'm just trying to understand what is the point of pursuing a replacement for this bill that cannot control the export of refined fuels? Isn't that sort of the major, the bulk of the demand that you would be facing?
We need to make sure that, one, that this piece of legislation is as strong as possible for it to be a tool that we can use. And while we agreed with the previous government pursuing this legislation, which is why we chose to proclaim it when our government came into power, there were weaknesses with it that could become a potential problem with legal challenges. We watched the process over the last little bit, and now that we are at an opportunity to be able to make revisions to make that legislation stronger, we are taking that opportunity within the legislature. I would submit to you, no, if we are stopping the shipment of things besides just refined fuels, it can have a significant impact on other jurisdictions. And we hope that we would never have to use it, but it is our intention to make sure that Alberta's government has every tool possible, even the ones that they may not end up having to use, but every tool possible on the shelf, ready to be able to defend Albertans and to defend our hard-earned right by Peter Lougheed to be able to develop our own resources and to be able to defend the interests of this province and in particular our energy industry.
Follow-up question?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you think that this new version proposed of this bill leaves you completely off the hook for any legal challenges, any future constitutional challenges. And if so, like how many lawyers have given you an opinion that would suggest that?
There's no way that you can guarantee that there would never be a legal challenge or, frankly, to anticipate what other parties may pursue within the court system when it comes to this issue. But what I can tell you is that the Department of Energy has worked tirelessly with legal counsel to be able to make sure that we have the strongest piece of legislation that we believe will stand up if there was to be a legal challenge, which is one of the important reasons why we wanted to make these changes right now with the opportunity that we have this spring, is to make sure it's as strong as possible and that it can be in place for a long time to be able to defend our province and our energy industry.
Operator, can you put through the next caller, please?
Ellie Kreiderman, Globe and Mail.
Hi there. Good afternoon. I'm wondering whether this legislation would only be used in circumstances when you're dealing with other Canadian provinces, or could also be used with jurisdictions outside Canada, like Michigan, for instance, and like the debate that we're seeing over Line 5, pardon me.
So this legislation primarily revolves around our Constitution in Canada. Obviously, that does not apply to international issues and is about interprovincial relations in Confederation. We govern our relationship with other countries when it comes to pipelines through treaties, and we would continue to use other mechanisms that are within our ability as a province, and to encourage the federal government to use other mechanisms that are in their ability when they're dealing with international relations between other countries. But the intent of this legislation is to protect Alberta within Confederation.
Follow-up question?
Yes, just in terms of the previous legislation, there was never any detailed regulations that went with the legislation that was introduced last time, and in effect, it's my understanding it wasn't really usable. How quickly do you intend to move to introduce regulations that would actually put this law into play?
So the Department of Energy will have more to say after we've tested the legislature to make sure that we have support. But I will say that the speed of which the government is moving forward with this in the spring session indicates our commitment to it, and the fact that we think that it's an important tool, not for any one jurisdiction, but for all jurisdictions, conversations that are taking place with our province when it comes to resource development. It is certainly our hope that we never have to use it, but we do intend to make sure that it is on the shelf, and you will hear more from the Department of Energy when it comes to implementation after it goes through its process inside the legislature in the coming weeks.
Operator, can you put through the next caller, please?
Emma Graney, Globe and Mail.
Yeah, g'day, Minister. Question on the other legislation that this one replaces. Did you guys just straight up not realise or forget that it had a sunset clause?
No, we're well aware that it had sunset clause. I mean, frankly, as I said, this was one of the first decisions that this government had to undertake in the very first cabinet meeting about an hour after this government was sworn in. We recognized at the time that there were some weaknesses with the bill that the official opposition had brought forward. Having said that, we recognized that 99% of it was right and that we need to move with speed. And so that's why we made the choice to proclaim it. But we then took the time over the last couple of years to watch the current legal challenges and to get legal advice to be able to make sure that when that sunset clause did come up, we would be able to move quickly to put in legislation that overcame some of the legal issues that we saw with that last piece of legislation. And that's what you're seeing take place right now.
Follow-up question?
Yeah, quick question there as well. So this is generally an energy bill. I'm curious why you're presenting this and not Minister Savage.
As I said in my opening remarks, Emma, I'm here covering for my colleague, Minister Savage. This definitely is a bill that will be proceeding under her leadership, that she has led on and she will be undertaking within the legislature. Unfortunately, Minister Savage is not available today because of some personal reasons, so she asked that I come and spend some time with you as we get her bill rolling.
Operator, can you put through the next caller, please?
Don Braid, Calgary Herald.
Minister, what's the process under the old bill for blocking a shipment?
The process under the old bill, Don, what's probably better is to take you through that each step by step. So I'll have a Department of Energy official come and take you through each step and show you a comparison between the process now and the process now. But again, there ain't much changes within this legislation when it comes to how it would proceed, with the exception of making changes around refined fuels to make sure that that a legal challenge could not overcome this important piece of legislation.
Follow-up question?
No, that's okay, thanks.
Operator, can you put through the next caller, please?
Kevin Nimick, CTV.
Hi, Minister. Canmore Town Council killed a plan today to build a large housing development project, which opponents said would interfere with a wildlife corridor. Had you expressed concerns around this project and how it might impact wildlife in Alberta?
I'm not aware of the project that you're speaking about. Municipalities have projects all across the province, and there's a lot of wildlife corridors, so we need more specifics to be able to answer that. But what I can say is we respect the municipal process, and a town like Canmore going through that process with hearings is exactly what's supposed to be taking place. And when I get some time, I'll have a look at that decision to understand a little more what's taking place there.
Operator, can you put through the next caller, please?
Catherine Grigowski, Alberta Today.
Good afternoon, Minister. The previous iteration of this bill was brought forward when there was that tension over TMX, and that's since simmered down. You say this is sort of a last resort. Why does this bill need to be in place now?
Again, this is like a fire extinguisher. Having it on the shelf, ready to go, hopefully we never need it, but we need to have it in place. The reality is if we came to a spot where we needed this legislation and it was not passed, the legislative process is slow, and we don't know where we would be, whether the House was sitting, what may or may not be taking place at that time. So it's prudent from our perspective to make sure that we have every tool on the shelf to protect our rights, to develop our resources, and to protect Albertans and our industries. So this is creating the fire extinguisher and making sure that fire extinguisher remains on the shelf, ready to go if and when it's needed. I want to stress this is not just about BC, though that is what started that conversation around TMX. We're very excited about how TMX is proceeding. We're confident that we think it will be completed. We intend to continue to keep pressure to make sure that happens. But our relationship with BC on that issue has gone very well of late, and we hope to see that pipeline built soon. But we will make sure that we have every tool on the shelf to be able to protect this province.
Follow-up question?
And the way the previous government had intended to use this bill was sort of to have it hanging over any opponents and to not proclaim it, but you when you got in government, as you mentioned, proclaimed it. So why have it retroactively in effect? Why not have it hanging over any pipeline opponents' heads?
Again, my view and the view of our government was that it showed the lack of seriousness of the previous government to utilizing this tool if they needed to. Frankly, from our perspective, there was a lack of seriousness about protecting our largest industry or standing up when the time was needed to be on pipelines and other issues along those lines. This shows Alberta is serious, that we have a serious law in place that we could use if we need it. We don't want to use it. But talking about a law is not the same as having a law. This law, we hope, will pass the legislature. It will be proclaimed, and it will be clear to all jurisdictions that we have the ability to use it if we need to defend our interests.
Operator, can you put through the last caller, please?
Robert Tuttle, Bloomberg News.
Yeah, hi. I just got on. I just got this a few moments ago. I just want to understand first. So refined fuels are exempt from this. You can ship. You're not going to be able to prevent the shipment of refined fuels to other provinces?
That is the change that is within this legislation from the previous legislation. There were legal issues associated with refined fuels being within the legislation, so it's our intention to take this process to strengthen it, make sure that it could stand up to legal challenges and be used as a tool long-term for the province.
So what leverage would you have over, say, BC, which doesn't use much Canadian crude, but doesn't use much Alberta crude, but does use refined fuels? I mean, what leverage would you have if you can't prevent the shipment of gasoline and diesel over there?
Again, crude oil, natural gas, other things along those lines does have impact on other areas. I want to stress again, this is not just about BC. We are very happy that we're in a very different situation than we were 2 years ago when it comes to our province to the west. At the time, we were standing up and defending against TMX. This is about making sure there's a long-term piece of legislation that could be used in any type of a conflict within Confederation where other provinces were attempting to block, or other parties were attempting to block the development of our resources. And again, I want to stress, hopefully it's never needed, but there's no point in having a fire extinguisher to put out a fire if you don't have it inside the place where you need it.
Thank you for your time today and your questions.
Thank you.